So I grew up in Sheffield. I went to Tapton, then I went to King Ted's in the 70s, and I wanted to be in the music business. So when I left, my last school report said, and I quote, "Nick cannot enter a fantasy world of glittering stardom that does not exist." Well, that was about 1976 in the summer. I went to work at what was then Bradley's Records. Back in those days, Bradley's had 3 shops, one in Princeton Street, one in Fargate, and one in Chapel Walk. And I ended up working all 3 of them. And I was desperate to join the music business. And I went to a festival called Greenbelt in 1976 in the summer there, and saw a band called After the Fire. And then about 6 months after that, the bass player left the band, and I managed to blag my way in there, despite the fact I couldn't play the bass. I ended up joining them, and that got me started and made my first record. They were what was called a progressive rock band, Sheridan.
Progressive rock?
Bands like Yes and Genesis and Gentle Giant and all that kind of stuff. Green Slade, who came and played the Crucible.
Green Slade, yes.
So I joined them, and then that got me started, basically. And really the last, ever since then, I've been in the music business, making records, writing songs, producing, signing talent. And it's what I love. I've always loved music. My mum used to take me to the Norfolk Arms when I was a lad.
Is that the one at the one at Ringinglow?
Yeah, the one at Ringinglow, yeah, opposite the Roundhouse. And I used to go there on a Friday night and see Big Al's jazz band. And I'd sit in the corner with a Vimto and a packet of Bovril crisps.
Oh, yes.
And I'd watch people play. And I remember also Big Al supported Stefan Grappelli at Mexborough Jesters Club. And I went and I got to meet Stefan Grappelli because I was playing the violin back then, and he inspired me to improvise on the violin and stuff. So yeah, I grew up in Sheffield wanting to be a musician. Didn't quite know how I was going to do it, but somehow found a way. And over the years I always say the first 10 years of my career I starved for a living, and the last 40 have not been so bad.
Very good. You've just brought memories flooding back there of Bradley's Records. I do remember it well. I went there to buy my first James Last album. Well, I think it was the last one I bought as well, actually.
It would probably be in that section middle of the road next to Bert Camford.
Indeed, I brought that one as well. And Klaus Wunderlich. You know them all, don't you, Nick? So, if you knew Bradley's, can you remember Rare and Racy as a young man?
Now, was that in Castle Market?
No, it was up on just off West Street. It was a book and vinyl shop. It's just recently closed down. It was there for many, many years.
Oh, right. No, I don't remember that. It rings a bell. I remember there used to be a great little record shop in Broomhill I used to go to.
Record Collector.
Yeah. And
it's still there.
Is it really?
It's still there. It's next to Fox and Duck, where Def Leppard lads drink.
Well, you see, in between times, in 1980, I came back to refuel and regroup, and I became a postman for a while. And I used to deliver Joe Elliott's albums to his, I think his parents' house in Tasker Road or something. I used to deliver his albums to him. But basically the first 3 years, I came back in 1980, having made 4 records, but I was really struggling to survive. And I came back, regrouped, became a postman for a while. Then I worked at the steelworks, and it was at the time when a certain female prime minister was strangling the life out of the North in terms of the mines and the industry. And my job then was to go into the steelworks and scrub these 30-foot high lathes down with a wire brush and acid to get them sold off to Scandinavia. And then I regrouped again, and a friend of mine called Simon Humphrey, who then was, I think he produced the Jags, The Secret Affair, he rang me up and he said, "Come down and have another go." And so I went back down and had another go. I ended up living in this damp basement in Bayswater. And one morning, this lady's washing came floating down, and she followed it shortly afterwards. And she said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm a musician. I want to be a songwriter." And she said, "Well, my husband's a songwriter. You should meet him." So I go upstairs to meet this chap. He's from Yugoslavia. And he said, "I know Cliff Richard. He's asked me to write some songs." And I said, "Well, you're Yugoslavian. I'll write the words for you." And that got me my first gold record as a songwriter. And we wrote 20 songs for Cliff. I recorded 3. Sadly, no hit showed, otherwise I'd have a pension. But it got me started, and it kept me alive. And over the years, I became down the road in 1986, I started to sign talent and work with bands like The Alarm and REM on the Document record, and then over the years became a music publisher and represented Burt Bacharach and all sorts of people. Life's been very kind to me, actually, in terms of the breaks I've had. But I'll tell you what made me was that when I didn't have much fun at Tapton, but I went to King Ted's. There was a teacher there called Jack North, and Jack had been blown up during the war. But he got me, and he knew I was never going to ever amount to anything academically. And I used to say to him, I said, sir, I've got a session at Radio Sheffield this afternoon. And he'd look at me and he'd go, right, Battle. He'd say, right, off you go. If you get caught, you're on your own. I know nothing about it. And I literally got bunk off school with his without his permission, but with his knowledge. And that school made me, it really did, into what I am, because it was a school whereby the teachers understood the entire kid. If somebody didn't fit the mould, I was in sixth form removed, which is all the kids who hadn't done very well at O-levels got to take their O-levels again. And that removed, in our sixth form, we had people like Graham Fellows, we had people like Matthew Bannister, I think Joe Elliott may have been there, I think Martin Ware maybe, Martin Archer certainly, and it was quite a creative little group of folk. And what was great was that the school understood who we were as kids. I didn't try to put a square peg in a round hole, but accepted it was a square peg. And for that, I'll always be eternally grateful.
Sixth form once removed. Well, I think, Nick, I should have been in sixth form twice removed myself. So, thinking back to Sheffield, even now, what are your favourite places in the Steel City, would you say?
Well, it's actually outside. I love Hathersage, and I love tramping the moors, and I love Carl Walk, and I love going up to the top there, and that just feeds my soul. That feeds my soul. But in terms of memories, I remember when I was a lad having our school speech day and playing the Sheffield City Hall. I led the school orchestra, and then I did a song of my own I'd written with my mate John Parr, and we got two twins called Ian and John Bone, who still live in Sheffield, and we got up there to sing, and my violin string snapped. I had to restring the violin and talk to the audience, and I was bricking it. But it was a happy memory, because it was just, I thought, well, we did it. We did a song I'd written of my own, and we also sang the James Taylor song Fire and Rain, which is one of my favourite songs. And that was a special memory. But also, it's Sheffield City Hall, because also I saw my first bands there. I saw Focus, I saw Black Sabbath, I saw the Groundhogs, I saw Ralph McTell. I've now got one of Ralph's guitars. And, so these were moments. And also, Richard Hawley, of course, Cole's Corner. I remember having my very first date ever with Jennifer Crowson and meeting her at Cole's
Corner. Oh, didn't we all? You see, you could stand outside one door, and if they saw you and didn't like the look of you, they could leave by the other door. So they didn't have to meet you. Did you know that? That's what they did. That's why I was always stood with flowers on my own, Nick. Once they saw me. Once they privy to what they saw. So I hear that you live in Cornwall now. Now that sounds lovely. But I want to ask you, can you get Henderson's relish down there?
You get Henderson's relish pretty much anywhere, thankfully. But I know I make my own Yorkshire puds. But I remember that day, because I stood outside Cole's Corner, and I walked down Jennifer Crowson to the Gaumont Cinema.
The Gaumont.
And I watched On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Oh, wait, George Lazenby, yes.
George Lazenby, and there was an actress called Lana Turner, whose stage name was Plenty O'Toole.
Oh, yes, it was, wasn't it? Yes.
So, and then those days, of course, Wilson Peck's was on the corner opposite.
Wilson Peck's.
And, such happy memories of growing up in Sheffield. I lived in Fulwood till my parents divorced, and lived in Greystones, just off Endcliffe Park there.
Oh, yes.
And I miss it. I miss the North. I miss the fact that people are so flipping downright straightforward. Well, so I remember when I got married, my father-in-law said, you can always tell a Yorkshireman, but you can't tell him much.
So you have met some illustrious names indeed, haven't you? Something I note here that says the Spice Girls, because all I know about Spice is Old Spice, but I do remember them. So
my dad used to wear Old Spice, and he used to wear Brute as well.
Very good.
But so the Spice Girls, I'll tell you what happened there. I had a friend called Simon Fuller, and he was managing Annie Lennox, and he'd managed Dean Martin and Kathy Dennis, and I'd promoted Paul Hardcastle for him at radio, and basically I got wind that he had this new girl group. I was then number 2 at a company called Windswept Pacific, and we're a music publisher. And music publishers basically sign talent and develop it. and we signed all 5 of them.
Yeah.
Took the place over, and we signed them, and it was extraordinary. And Wannabe went to number 1 in 31 countries, I think it was, and it was an extraordinary time. But also, I got to represent some wonderful songwriters. I got to represent Albert Hammond, Burt Bacharach, Pete Sinfield, who wrote Think Twice for Celine Dion, the late Pete Sinfield, and I've always been about songs. I've written songs since I was 12, and so to be able to represent some of the world's best songwriters, and also some country writers as well from Nashville, was a great privilege. And yeah, the pop things, the Spice Girls were a phenomenon, and they were incredible, absolutely incredible. And I count myself very fortunate to have had those relationships. But sometimes in life, it's relationships that carry things forward. And that's what makes, I think, business happen. I think people know if you're genuine and authentic, and hopefully, if that's the case, then they'll always do business with you.
Then one of the listeners has just sent me a text here. Are you linked to that marvellous musical masterpiece, magnum opus, known as the Birdie Song?
Oh, where did you exhume that from? Okay, so long story short, with my mate Simon Humphrey, he used to produce Secret Affair at the Jags. He had a record to make, and he said, "Why don't you come and make a record with me?" So we made a record under the name Sporting Life, and then we started a production company called Sporting Life Productions. We had a minor hit with the Techno Twins, Falling in Love Again. But I remember the guy at the record label who owned it, who was, shall we say, what's a kind word to use now? A bit of a character, came back from holiday in Spain with this record which went he said, "What do you think about that?" And I said, I can't tell you on the radio what I really thought. I said something along the lines, "It's a pile of poop, it'll probably sell 1 million. And he said, "Do you want to make it?" And I said, "No, I don't, but I think you should sign it." So he created his own version of it, and then they got on Top of the Pops, and they called this band the Tweets. And there were groups of tweets going out, a bit like the one was going out all over the country. And I remember he said, they got Top of the Pops, he said, "We're minus the fluffy chicken. Would you be the fluffy chicken on Top of the Pops?" And I thought about it for all of half a second, and I went, "Do you know what? I can't really do it. I can't imagine ringing my mum up at 20 Stainton Road, Greystones, and saying, 'Now then, Mum, I'm the one of the orange tights of the Earl of Beak.' No, I'll wait till I get the opportunity to do it myself properly, thanks." So yes, that was one particular crime against music, and it's I've always had this ability or disability to bump into things at the right time. Normally things that are quite naff, and have a good ear for it. Speaking of which, I used to work with Simon Cowell as well, and I was a consultant to Psycho in the mid-noughties, and also at Decca Records, where I made 4 Michael Ball records, a Russell Watson record, and an Engelbert Humperdinck record. He was lovely, actually, Engelbert. He's a real old-fashioned showbiz, really lovely man.
You do so many things, Nick. You're a Renaissance man, aren't you, really? So, songwriting, performing, writing books. But what do you enjoy doing the most, do you think?
Being a dad. And outside of being a dad, I think creating and writing songs and having people respond to what you make is a real privilege. When I came to the Lansing Theatre on Friday, March the 7th in Nether Edge, and I'll be playing my songs and telling stories about my life. And, I've been very blessed in some ways. At times it's been very tough as well. I lost a first wife to cancer after a 10-year fight, and that was hard. My little girls were very small. But, it's like anything else, Sheridan, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And my view on life is it's to be lived, it's to be enjoyed, it's to be cherished. And it's, I try and carry and find those little bits of joy in every single day that I have.
That's very, very profound.
Well, neither of us are getting any younger.
Yes,
and,
well...
the clock is ticking, so we've got to enjoy our days. Carpe diem.
Carpe diem.
Seize the day.
Seize the day. Yes, but what do you think you're most proud of then, really, of your achievements?
My kids. Misha, Jodie and Jessie, without a doubt. That's what matters most to me. Gold records and stuff, it's not irrelevant, but it's not important. What is important is when we depart this earth, leaving some happy memories behind and leaving a happy family behind. And that, for me, is always the aim. If I can leave some songs that have moved people and touched their hearts and souls, and brought joy, then yeah, that's a great privilege to be able to do that.
Absolutely, Nick. So if somebody's thinking, I'm sure they are thinking out there, if somebody's thinking about coming along to see you at the Lantern Theatre in Sheffield on Friday, March the 7th, for Songs and Music Industry Stories with yourself, Nick, what can they expect?
Songs for grown-ups. So a bit of laughter, a little bit of introspection, a little bit of colour, some naughty stories, some
stories.
Some things to warm the cockles of your heart as well.
Yeah,
it'll be an evening of mirth, merriment, and arguably deep emotion.
Well, listeners, that's an evening of mirth, merriment, and deep emotion. Well, Nick, I'd just like to thank you very much for taking the time to have a chat with. Oops, never buy teeth from a catalogue. Just 1 second. Yes, Nick, I'd like to thank you very much, Nick, and I wish you all the best with your future endeavours, sir. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's been a real privilege to talk to you, and thank you for your time. And when you mentioned the word catalogue, all of a sudden I was transported to the Grattan catalogue in the ladies' lingerie section. Don't ask me why.
Oh, it's Empire Stores for me.
Thanks very much, Sheridan.